here, and we're going to be talking about The Walking Dead, Rise of the Governor, chapters 16 through 20 today. And where we left off last time was Philip's group was kicked out of Tara and April's apartment, and they were left to fend for themselves with all their bags, but no weapons. So that should pose as an interesting take for the rest of the story, or at least the next 5 chapters. So, where we are now is Philip, Penny. I realize I've been calling Penny Jenny this whole time, and my apologies, but her name was actually Penny. But Philip, Penny, Brian, and Nick are out on their own, and they're going to be looking for a place to live or a place to stay temporarily, possibly, hopefully, or permanent. But they take shelter in this this motorcycle shop. I think it's like a Harley Davidson dealership. And so Philip gets on one Harley and Nick gets on the other, and Penny rides with Philip and Brian rides with Nick. So while they're going down the road looking for a place to live, Brian has this feeling. He has this really strange feeling that someone is following them, or someone is scoping them out, getting the feel for them. And so he just shirks it off and just pretends like he's possibly going crazy, or it's just stress, basically. And so about maybe 25, 50 miles down the road, they come across this villa. It's a big mansion, and it's got an orchard with it. And so they look at the place. They've got a place to hide their bikes. They've got a place to sleep. They've got plenty of firewood for the winter, because the timeline, it's November right now. So it's getting pretty cold out there, and it's almost constantly raining. It's Georgia, so I'm not too sure. I've never been to Georgia, so I don't know how the weather is down there. But they come across this villa where they get to stay for a while. So they actually become happy and relaxed, and they let their guards down a little bit. But Brian still has this nagging feeling that they're still being watched. He keeps hearing things at night around the house, outside, or in the attic, and he just can't shake the feeling. He tells Nick and Philip, and obviously they don't believe him. Why would they? Because he's Brian, and he's a fuck up. He's a screw up. Sorry. Excuse my language. He's a screw up. But he still can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. Until a couple weeks later, they come across... Until a couple weeks later, when they hear the cans outside jangling and clanking together. I think they set up a perimeter around the villa, and they hear some noises outside, and Brian looks out his window, and it looks like someone's coming upon their property. And so Philip bursts into Brian's room and says, "Hey, get ready. Take Penny and go down the hall." And so Brian does that. He gets Penny and he goes down the hall to protect Penny. And so Philip and Nick go downstairs. Nick goes outside and with a machete, and Philip goes down to the kitchen with this rifle, with a shotgun. It looks like it's from the colonial times, or like the World War II era, and he's not even sure if it even works. But he goes downstairs into the kitchen, and he sees a guy standing in the kitchen, holding a rifle at him, or holding a gun at him, or to his face. And so, unfortunately, Nick is caught, and so is Brian and Penny. And so the 4 are forced to leave the villa with their lives, hopefully, fingers crossed. They're forced to leave the villa with their lives. No shoes. They have to leave with the clothes on their back. They can't take anything with them that they brought to the villa. They have to leave their bikes, all their belongings. And so they agree to do that. And so as soon as they head out to the orchard where the tall bushes are, someone starts firing at them. So looks like the gang of thieves, or the band of thieves, or whatever, went back on their word. They were going to kill Philip and his group anyway, no matter what happened. So after that, shots are being fired, and the group is running from the shots being fired. And so Brian and Penny run in the opposite direction of Nick and Philip. So they split up, unfortunately. And so they're not too far apart because Brian still has Philip in his sights almost. And one of the guys that was shooting at them, he creeps into the orchard, and Philip and Nick, they kill the guy, and they take his guns and they run back to the villa, and there's an all-out war between the two groups. And unfortunately, well, actually right before they run to the villa, Philip runs up to Brian and tells him to protect Penny with his life. Just whatever you do, keep her safe. And that right there lets you know some stuff is about to go down. I knew it as soon as I read it. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. But I'm getting to that part, and Philip and Nick run back to the house, or run back to the villa, and they start having a shootout with the other gang, or with the other group. And so Brian and Penny, they run away because they feel the effects of the bullets whizzing past their faces and past their bodies, and so they run from where the shots are being fired. And then all of a sudden, Brian has to pull Penny. Unfortunately, he's dragging her, and so he doesn't realize this at first until he throws her over his shoulder, and he feels this warm substance on his body. And he knows he hadn't been shot. And then he realizes, oh crap, Penny's been shot. So he stops by a tree and puts her on the ground, and lo and behold, Penny has been shot through the back, and it comes from the back and through the front. She's been shot in the back. And she's holding on for dear life. She's gasping and she's choking, and she's at her last few moments on this earth when she whispers to Brian, away. That is a code word that they both have for each other. When something goes down, the other one has to run. And so Penny whispers away to Brian, and he's crying and sobbing and trying to put pressure on the wound, but unfortunately it's not working because it was a through and through shot, unfortunately. And Penny passes away. 8-year-old Penny passes away. And then when the shots stop, when the gunfire stops, Philip runs back to Brian and realizes that his daughter is dead. And then he kicks Brian's butt. He really beats him up really bad. He punches him, he kicks him in the face, kicks him in the gut, in the back, and the ribs, because Brian was supposed to protect Penny with his life. And unfortunately that did not happen, but Brian did the best that he could. But yes, we did lose Penny. And here's the interesting part. What do you think Philip is going to do next? If you read the book already, then you already know. If you have not read the book, this part is interesting. So, instead of putting a knife through Penny's head, Philip keeps her as a pet. He keeps her tied to a tree, and he can't let go of her. That was the only thing he had left of his old life. He refuses to let go of his daughter. Now that she's a Penny zombie-like thing, he still can't let go of his little girl. I get it. But it's time to let go. So, when the gun war is finished and everything is silent, they go back to the house, they go back to the villa, and they decide, you know what, the bad guys are gone, they're dead, all of them are dead except for 2. But Nick and Brian don't realize there's 2 people left. There's 2 people still alive. But Philip is keeping them hostage in the barn. He's keeping them prisoner because he holds them responsible for the death of his daughter, because she's dead, but not really dead. Her body is reanimated. And so he takes on torturing the man and the woman that are still alive, that he's keeping prisoner. He repeatedly rapes the woman, the female bad guy, and he abuses the male villain. And when Nick and Brian find out that he's doing this to these people, they have an idea to give the people some water and let them go. But the lady on the ground, she is the bad lady who is hogtied on the ground. She begs for Nick to kill them. And so he gives her mercy, and he kills them. One shot to the head for each person. And so Philip comes in, sees it, and he is just like, whatever. F it. So the next thing that happens, Philip decides it's not safe to stay there anymore because whatever they have, someone else is going to want, and they're going to want to take it for their own, and it's just not worth keeping the villa. So Brian, Nick, and Philip, and Zombie Penny, they go onto the road. They take one of the villain's trucks, and then 5 miles on the road, the truck breaks down. So they end up having to walk a few more miles to a place called Woodbury, Georgia. And they find the place Woodbury. They sneak into the back. They have one weapon each. They put them on the floor while the guys come inspect them from Woodbury. And then after that, let's see what happens after that. They find a little apartment that they can stay in, and a couple days later, they have a visitor. Nick and Brian realize, you know what, Philip has gone too far, because now their permanent visitor that is now staying in the laundry room, is Zombie Penny. So, what happens next? Stay tuned. This is Katura. I love you guys. Namaste. Peace out. Happy Easter, because it is Easter morning. And I'll see you guys next time in the next video. Bye-bye. Sayonara, au revoir, all that good stuff.